Welcome back to the Lost Legacies podcast. This is just a reminder that when we originally started this show, me and Sam it was kind of a different project and we were going under a different name. But this is Lost Legacies. If that's what you're looking for, you're in the right place. Also, what I want to bring up, because we weren't talking about back when we were pre-recording this stuff, is we don't really have a social media set up yet for Lost Legacies. We're not sure how deep into that we're going to go. But you can always reach out to me at _Matt Jimenez at Twitter. And Sam, where are you at?
You can reach out to me on Twitter and Instagram if you want. My @ is real. That's REEL Texas Weirdo.
Sweet. Now, we're telling you this because if I'm not talking to myself or my brother, I'm hoping someone's listening to this. If you want to watch along with us, go for it. If you want to jump ahead, go for it. Although, no spoilers, because this is Sam's first watch. But if you got any questions or comments about Lost or the episodes you're watching, go ahead, let us know. Send it to, what should we do? Hashtag Ask Sam and Matt. Because I looked up the hashtag Lost Legacy, and it's a mix of stuff. But there's no Ask Sam and Matt. So hashtag Ask Sam and Matt. If it's relevant to the episode we're talking about or to a certain character, we'll bring it up while we're recording. If it's just kind of more random stuff and we get enough, we might just do like a Q&A episode, something special. Maybe we could even like live stream that or something. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I've never live streamed in my life, but I'm sure we'll figure it out. So let us know. Remember, hashtag Ask Sam and Matt, because that is us. Now enjoy episode 2 of Lost Legacies.
Thanks, guys.
Welcome back. Episode 2 of Rewatch with Sam and Matt. I'm Matt.
And I'm Sam.
Awesome. So, today we're going to be talking about Lost Episode 2, The Pilot, Part 2.
No. Just Pilot, Part 2.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Cue theme music.
Wow, that was really good.
Thank you. Okay, so I guess just like last time, I'm just gonna do a recap, which it's very interesting because even though they're separated, you can definitely tell that both episodes 1 and 2 were filmed together. Mm-hmm. Even just the quality, everything is just top notch. And the episode begins almost right where the last one ends, with Jack, Kate, and Charlie walking through the jungle. Mm-hmm. But we find out fairly early on in the episode that Charlie is a drug addict. Dun, dun.
Yeah.
We find out in flashbacks of his what he was doing on the plane right before it crashed. And guess what? He was doing drugs. So moral of the story, kids, don't do drugs on a plane because it will crash. And
guaranteed. That's a guarantee.
Guarantee, you know. You don't have to take my word for it. And then the episode goes on a little bit. There's a lot of more kind of character introductions in this episode. Whereas in the first episode, you see everyone here and there. Mm. But this was the episode where it really started focusing on I don't want to say side characters, but not Jack and Kate.
Yeah.
You know, and even episode 1 featured Charlie and Hurley a bit. This one kind of got more into it. We start off pretty early on with Michael looking for his boy Walt, mm-hmm. who had a dog on the plane, Vincent. So they're looking through the jungle for him when they find a pair of empty handcuffs.
Dun, dun, dun.
And the turntables. And the vibe changes. And then almost instantly, right after commercial break, we see Saeed and Sawyer in just a throw-out brawl. And then, of course, Dr. Jack has to break it up, and it's revealed that Michael showed everyone that there's handcuffs. So now there's this new element in the show of what's going on. Nobody knows who each other are. They know
Yeah.
there's a doctor, and that's it. Now they know that there was possibly a criminal amongst them, which I think is a pretty cool little twist to add very early on in the series. And I
Mhm.
think it's much better to throw it right at the beginning than it is like a twist later on.
Yeah.
You know? So accusations start getting thrown. Sawyer, who is Josh Holloway, who plays Sawyer, man, he's awesome. Like, you hate him from the get-go.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, this guy is a dick. And the fact that he has like the Southern charm just sells it even more.
Mhm.
It's just like, damn. But he's accusing.
He's definitely the Wolverine of the show.
Yeah, and he's the first one to jump up and start accusing Saeed of crashing a plane just because he has dark skin. He's of some kind of Middle Eastern descent,
Mhm.
and that's what the whole fight breaks out and all this stuff. And I thought that was a really good scene. There's a lot of other little stuff where Michael goes and kind of meets Sun and Jin at the beach while he's looking for
Mhm.
Walt. And Sun and Jin are two Korean characters who don't speak English, so there's a big language barrier from the start with these characters.
Yeah.
But just there's no subtitles or anything, so we as an audience don't know what they're saying unless you speak Korean. But we can tell just by the acting that Jin, he's kind of like that alpha douche guy. You can tell he's very domineering over his wife. He's telling her what to do. You can tell that at first she's just very submissive, but then even later when she kind of catches Kate bathing in the ocean and she's like
Mhm.
calling her, you see like she's kind of in awe of Kate. You know,
Yeah.
what could have been just like a scene of like, oh, we got the pretty hot young new actress, we're going to put her in her bathing suit, and it ended up being like, oh wait, okay, you're seeing it from Sun's perspective, and you're like, oh man, that's something that like she's kind of somehow deprived of. We don't really know her story,
Yeah.
but just the fact that her husband is making her button up her very super top button on her
Mhm.
blouse, is total polar opposite of Kate. So that was a cool, nice little character moment.
And I would like to point out that uh, in pilot part 1, we do see some subtitles for when Jin is talking to Sun, but it's just him saying like, we can't trust anybody. You have to stay with me. Anywhere I go, you go. And that's the only line they get in that episode. And then immediately, as soon as we see them here, there's nothing. We don't get any subtitles even when they're talking to each other or when Jin is talking to Sun.
Yeah,
And,
and
and I think that's real
they're very
interesting.
standoffish with everyone else. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, so we're instantly getting, and even Michael when he's trying to talk to them and he realizes what's going on, he even says, "Sorry,
Yeah.
and he just slowly walks away. It's like, yeah, the episode was full of so much of that. Kind of like the A plot of the episode was that Jack, they got the transceiver from the pilot at the end of the first episode. They give it to Saeed, who believes he can fix it, make it work, so they can send out a distress signal. And him and Kate decide the best way to do it is to climb to the highest point they can of the island, which was a pretty cool shot. The camera just keeps like panning up and up and up, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh man, this is gonna be a trek.
Mm-hmm.
And so they decide to go, and with them, surprisingly, goes Sawyer, because I'm a complex guy, sweetheart.
Oh my god.
Such a
Was that your
douche.
Sawyer?
Yeah, he's such a douche. I love it. Like they're really painting him as like the wild card badass,
Mm-hmm.
And then Charlie, who's just like high out of his mind on heroin right now, he
Mm-hmm.
goes, and surprisingly, Boone and Shannon go.
Yeah.
The two squabbling siblings, which I think I even wrote in my notes. I love how useless Shannon is. She's just like sunbathing. She's refusing to eat. She's just so certain that rescue is coming.
Mhm.
And Boone, even though he doesn't really know what he's doing based on the first episode, you can tell he's trying, you know?
Yeah.
But he really comes off as a dick in this episode.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I guess he is, because this is the first time we get to see him and like Shannon really interacting. You
Mhm.
know, the way he was talking to her and stuff, like, yeah, this guy died. Get over it. I was like, oh my God, bro.
Yeah.
What the hell? You know?
Yeah. It's pretty messed up.
Yeah.
Siblings, am I right?
Yeah, siblings, yeah. So eventually the episode continues. The big kind of turn of events is like Jack is kind of on the sidelines in this episode,
Mm-hmm.
but there's still important stuff happening. He's still trying to nurse this man to health that has like a piece of shrapnel in him.
Mm-hmm.
And he has to pull it out because they haven't been rescued yet. He has to save his life. As he does, all this stuff almost seems to happen at the same time. The group goes on this epic hike with this epic montage. They're attacked by a polar bear, comes out of nowhere,
Mhm.
which is a twist. And then 2 seconds later, Sawyer pulls out a gun and shoots it to death, which is another twist. And now I'm like, okay, there's a gun on this island. Great. What does that
Great.
mean now? How's this power struggle going to change, you know? And then we instantly get a flashback of Kate on the plane. And you see her sitting with the marshal, and you realize she was the one in handcuffs.
Yeah.
And that's what the marshal tells Jack when he wakes up. Like, you can't trust her. You can't trust her. And then it ends. He passes out. So we're not sure exactly what Jack knows, right? That's kind of where that scene ends, right? He just, you can't trust her, and he passes out.
No, he grabs Jack and he's like, "Where is she? Where is she?"
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And that's it.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's all we see of that.
And that's the last we see of Jack that episode.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we'll see where that goes next time. But then finally, the episode wraps up at the end when Saeed gets the signal. He tries to send out like a mayday, but they realize that there's another signal. There's a message already playing, which that alone is almost impossible, just the odds of that. And they realize this message is from a French woman who was also stranded on this island. And she says, it killed them all. And now I'm alone. And that's when Saeed, he does the math and he realizes that the message has been playing for 16 years. And Charlie asks the question we have all been wondering for the past 2 episodes. Guys, where are we? Boom. And that's where the episode ends. So that was episode 2, the pilot, part 2. Sam, thoughts, feelings, emotions, contradictions.
You know, I think these 2 episodes, you know, I hate it. I hate it when you get like a full, you know, with commercials, like a full hour of television and it's only half of the pilot, you know? Like, I don't like that. I prefer it when you just gotta put both of them together. If you want to have a big old grand opening, like, there you go. You know, it's kind of like it because it's kind of like Buffy. The first episode of Buffy ends on a cliffhanger, and you're like, wait, what? And then it's like, oh, okay, you gotta wait a week, and it's like, and it's such a weird thing because I feel like both episodes work in tandem with each other. Like, it perfectly sets up the world. Like, okay, like we know what we're getting into, subverts it a little bit, and then it's like the rest of the pilot is like everything playing out, like how it's gonna be. And those 2 hours are sort of like, this is what you're going to be getting into for, you know, for this year, for this whole season. And it's the same thing with Lost. I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I really liked watching this part because it just felt like more things were happening, and it was more, I don't know, it was more engaging. You know, there's only so much you could go, go on with like oh, look, there's a plane crash and we've got to like save everybody. You know, we got to do all this, you know.
Mhm.
I feel like this perfectly sort of puts a stamp on like, yeah, this show is going to get weird. Not everything is what it seems. And that's true of both the island and the people who are now on the island. You know, it's
Mhm.
kind of like this episode was everybody sort of revealing something new about themselves. You know, you have um, well, I think like the biggest case would probably be Kate. You know, she was so like endearing, she was so like engaging in the first episode. You know, you almost immediately like trust her. You know, you're like, yeah, cool. And then, oh crap, we find out she's a criminal. We don't know what she's done yet, but we just know that she was in handcuffs before the plane went down. You know,
Mhm.
so it's like, so how far are we willing to go to trust her just because of some of the good stuff we've seen her do, you know, these two
Mhm.
episodes. You have somebody like Sawyer who didn't do much in the first half. This time, immediately we see him. He's a dick. You know, he's vaguely racist, and he doesn't get along with people. And then you have
And
that
he calls
moment.
Hurley Lardo, which
Yeah,
I was like, instantly, anyone who insults the Hurls, I'm like,
uh
no
huh.
way, man. Hurley's like the nicest, sweetest dude ever.
I
Mm-hmm.
know. And then but then there's the shot of him where he's like sitting on part of the wreckage and he's like reading a letter, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
assuming is his, and he looks emotional. He looks broken. You know, he looks so sad. And then he sees the group going off and then he goes with them. It's like, yeah, you talk about complicated. This dude is hella complicated. We get the idea that uh, Michael isn't a great father, and then Walt kind of expounds on that by saying that like he was living with his mom in Australia, but she died a few weeks ago. So it's like, okay, this is a new transition. You know, it's like he's been living with his mom for so long, and now he's going to live with his dad. That's kind of weird. You know, so Michael's not the best dad. He doesn't even remember how old his kid is. You can tell that he cares, but it's kind of like it feels more like a burden now. Uh, So yeah, even like Jin and Sun, you know, the that first half of the pilot, you get the idea that like okay, like they're going to be a couple that sticks together no matter what, and then you start to see in this episode like that might not be for the best, just with how Jin is treating Sun. He's very overbearing and all of that, but then he's very nice and cordial with other people. He is collecting all these sea oysters, these sea urchins, and he's feeding them. He's trying to feed people. And I think that's very interesting. And then you also have Sun, who is, being what I'm imagining is like she's playing this role. She is trying to be the quote unquote good, demure sort of wife who obeys her husband no matter what. But the second Jin leaves, she unbuttons the top of her blouse. It's like so you can see that there's a defiance in her that I'm really interested to see where this goes. Um, and yeah, again, I just think this is so weird that like I know I don't know a lot about the show. I know some things. I know some of the bigger twists. I don't know any of like the other like subtler arcs, So I'm coming at this kind of backwards and I'm just like, okay, this is kind of interesting. This is kind of cool. And it especially gets me that like I know how important John Locke becomes to this show. And it's so interesting to see the humble beginnings that this guy has. He doesn't say anything in the first part. He almost doesn't do anything. He's looking out at sea. He has the orange in his smile when he's looking at Kate, and that's it. And then this time, he has a conversation with Walt about backgammon.
I think to tie in with Locke, I think it's kind of sums up everything you're saying. How like these first two episodes are showing two sides to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, especially what you said with Jin. He's being a complete. dick to his wife, but he is trying and reaching out to everyone else. You know, Boone, even though he's kind of like he's trying his best, he's trying to help, but he's a complete dick with his sister.
Yeah.
You know, and then Locke, when everyone's running from the rain in the first episode, he's there with open arms, just like smiling and laughing. You know, and it's just like, so it's all of these like opposites going on. So this episode, Locke's scene, basically his introduction, talking with Walt, is just one of the coolest, creepiest like character introductions I've ever seen. Like, it's so good, it's so simple, but he's explaining the game of backgammon to Walt, you know, this little boy. And it's kind of, I mean, Locke's rocking that scar too. He somehow got a scar over his right eye in the plane crash.
I just have to say, I'm so jealous of that scar.
I know. I was like, dude, that looks good. But yeah, he explains it. He explains how it's the oldest game in history. It's over 5,000 years old. He's like, that's older than Jesus Christ. And the game is between two opponents, the light and the dark. And then he kind of just like pauses and tells Walt, can I tell you a secret? What? And that's all we see of him that episode. So Terry O'Quinn, who plays Locke, I believe he had a reoccurring role on Alias.
Yeah.
So he was already good friends with J.J. Abrams. So when they cast him and Damon Lindelof just said, look, we're going to write you a really good character. You just got to be patient. He doesn't do much in the pilot, but we'll get there. He's like, okay. And I'm like, yeah, like just looking back, you know, he's one of those figures of Lost where he's like, oh yeah, that's the guy from Lost, you know?
Yeah.
So so that was a really cool introduction. There's just so many cool little moments. It's all little character moments. And I think it helps since it's really early. There's not much plot. It's like, okay, we got to fix this radio. Okay, we got to climb to get it higher. And then everything else is literally just the character moments.
Yeah.
So you find out more about Charlie, Kate. Slowly you're discovering stuff as the characters are. But it's all the little stuff. I love Claire. She doesn't really do much, but she has a cool little arc. She's talking to Shannon about she's pregnant, which that changed the whole series because like 2 minutes in, we're in this plane crash in episode 1. Jack's helping people, and you hear he turns and he sees a pregnant woman in the middle of this plane crash. Ay, Dios mío, changes everything. So it's really cool to see now she's talking to Shannon about it. She's saying she hasn't felt the baby move since the crash. And of course, by the end, it's Jin as he gives her the whatever little seafood he's giving her. It starts kicking, and it's even a cute moment. And she's like, I called you he. I thought you were a he. You know? I'm like, oh, man. There's so many little moments. I love Hurley, and he's trying to help Jack, but he's like really, really gets sick with blood, so he passes out like on the dying guy.
Yeah.
Funny. Yeah, I love his little introduction with Saeed after the fight. He goes to introduce himself. He's like, I'm Hurley. And he's like, oh, you know, you're working, so he doesn't shake his hand. And Saeed stops and he puts his stuff down and he takes the time to introduce himself. I'm like, both those characters right there, I'm like, you instantly get that vibe. Like, these are both really good people, as we know so far. That's what we get, you know? And I'm like,
I mean, you know, when I was kind of worried. Everybody's showing their true colors, and Hurley, you know, is just like, I don't know, Jack, I can't do this. I'm not good with blood. I was like, is Hurley a vampire? Oh God, a vampire who can stand on the beach in the middle of the day. Oh God, what is this island? It's changed everybody. And then, he just passes out. Oh, okay. So he might not be a vampire, but
we don't know who any of these people are.
I'm gonna put that on my list. Like, I'm predicting that Hurley is actually a vampire, a werewolf now. He's a werewolf. So we got to see. You know, the ocean the moon controls the ocean tides. You know, it's maybe the island is powered by the moon. Maybe The island is the moon. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
So that was a cool little scene where Saeed says like, "Oh, I fought in the Gulf War," and Hurley was like, "Oh, I had a buddy, who fought there. What were you, Air Force?" And he's like,
Yeah,
"The Republican National Guard." He's like, oh, okay.
yeah.
See, and that's interesting too because that really sets up Saeed's character because here he is defending himself. Sawyer's calling him a terrorist. He's racially profiling him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, dude, don't do that. And then Hurley gets to know Sawyer and he finds out like, oh, okay. He was
Saeed?
the enemy. He was our enemy in the Gulf War.
Yeah.
So that instantly adds another layer of,
well, yeah,
I want to trust this guy, but you never know,
Mm-hmm.
And it really drives home the point. Like, we really don't know who anyone is at any time, strangers. I was like, wow, this is getting complex. I love it.
That's kind of the thing about this episode. I guess you could call it a theme, is kind of like pulling back the layers and seeing, what Locke is talking about. Like, there's two sides, there's a light and there's dark. That's true about people, because you see, like, okay, from our perspective, as Americans, like, Saeed was our enemy in the Gulf War, and yet here he is. He's probably the most capable person who can fix this radio, to get everybody off the island.
He's the one who builds the bonfire in the first episode.
Exactly. So it's like, you don't know people. Mm-hmm. Same thing. Same thing with Kate. All of that. It's also true of the island. The first episode, we get the sense that, like, oh, there's like a giant monster. There's something on the island that's evidently eating people. Likes to eat plane crash victims. That's an odd diet. But in this episode, we get to see a monster and we kill it. It's like, oh, and then we find out, oh, it's a polar bear. So it's like, one, we as the audience know that's not what killed the pilot.
Yeah.
So it's obviously not the monster that we were all hoping for, that we were all expecting. And then it's like, well, wait a minute. What is this polar bear doing here on the island? So it's like, it's this dual thing of, like, there's two sides, and yet it's also like, we really don't know anything. We don't know what's going on.
Yeah. So about the polar bear, when they filmed it, apparently they had some kind of like stuffed animatronic. I don't even think it was animatronic. I think it was like a stuffed bear. And when they did, like, I think they did like a test viewings or something like that. They said it was, a lot of people didn't like it because if you freeze frame it, it just looked like a stuffed bear being thrown in the air. So they ended up having to go back and like pretty much do it all CGI. But if you look it up online, you could see it's a stuffed bear. You see the original bear. Like, oh my god! But that scene led to one of my favorite lines in the episode, where they're like, everyone's looking at Sawyer and he has a gun, and he says something to the fact, he's like, yeah, I grabbed the gun. I thought it would be useful. Guess what? I shot a bear. And they asked, oh, that's when they asked, where did it come from? Kate asked, where did it come from? He's like, I don't know, Bear Village. It's like, the gun. Bear Village, unfortunately, will not be featured in the show Lost. It was planned for the scrapped season 7.
And it was actually going to be revealed that it was actually the Bernstein Bears.
The Bernstein Bears.
Yeah, they were,
or the Berenstein Bears,
or the Berenstein Bears.
We would have found out in season 7.
Exactly. I think that's where the whole confusion came from. It's the scrapped 7th season of Lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, like this right here was such a cool introduction to the show. I think I mentioned it last time. It cost $12 million to make the pilot, which at the time was the most expensive for any television show. So since this is episode 2, this was the pilot. The day they finished filming, 6 years later to the date, they finished filming the whole series, the series finale.
Oh, wow.
Oh man, it's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, so let's see. I just have some notes here. Bear Village. Yep, they're saving that for season 7. Geez, why is the marshal such a dick? The instant he shows up on screen, I'm like, this guy's an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And he plays that character so well. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be interesting to see more of him. Which does he look familiar to you?
Yeah. I don't know the actor's name, but he's like a bit actor, you know. He's got one of those recognizable faces. And for all you Supernatural fans out there, he is the actor who plays the infamous yellow-eyed demon in the early seasons of Supernatural.
Yeah, season 1, a little bit of like 2, and a little bit here and there.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
So I want to say that was right after this, because I want to say Supernatural premiered in 05.
Yeah,
So,
I remember that. Man, 05.
Yeah, man.
That's such a long time ago.
So my notes include everyone's just doing their best.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about. Everyone's trying, even if they're dicks, they're trying. Jack kind of puts I like how Jack is talking to people. You know, he's looking through stuff, and Michael's there, and he just says, "Oh, hey, how's your boy?" Very much like a doctor. He's very much the de facto leader, you know? He's just kind of instantly taking charge. And he does tell Michael about Vincent, the dog, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, he's in the lab. I saw him over there." And that's the last time we see Michael, so we're kind of getting an idea, like, oh, he's going to go try and find the dog.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about Shannon for a second. Because I wrote, I love how useless Shannon is.
Yeah.
Like just the way her character is, it could be annoying if that annoys you. But the way they use her is so brilliant. Like, I love how she's the one Claire ends up talking to, you know? And then I love how when we cut back to Shannon, she's crying and she's talking about this guy who wouldn't let them get their seats, and now he's the one who's dead.
Yeah.
So she's having like this little mini breakdown. But as Boone says, Boone wasn't wrong. He was right. He was just a dick about it. He's like, we've all gone through something traumatic. Get over it, you know? And she says something to the fact, like, you don't know what I'm thinking. Yes, I do. No, you don't. Like, well, what are you thinking? And you see Maggie Grace like scrambling. She's like, oh crap, what am I going to say? So on a whim, she says, I'm going to go with the radio people. I'm going to go for a hike. Oh, and they're fighting, and I love Saeed's reaction. He kind of has like his hand covering his face and these big eyes, like, I'm not stepping in between this at all.
Yeah.
But at the end, the transmission they get on the mountain, it's in French, and she's the only one who knows any French. And Boone says, you lived in Paris. And she replies, I was drinking, not studying. And that's when I wrote, Shannon is literally the worst. But she comes through at the end for not really knowing French. She was sure to translate that pretty well.
Yeah.
That was such like a kind of dreadful pit in the stomach scene. Like, oh, crap, what is happening? That's kind of where like hope kind of left the show.
It's kind of it's the kind of 1-2 punch that like gets set up by the pilot saying that we were over 1,000 miles off course before we went down. So they're looking for us in the wrong place. Like, that's one gut punch. And then the second gut punch is, oh, hey, we're getting a signal, but we can't get through because there's a 16-year-old message that's being transmitted. So we can't get out.
Right.
We can't call for help. No one's looking for us. And there's something on this island that has killed people before. So, yeah, you're just like, well, okay, sure. Yeah, this is a literal nightmare.
So, the first day of filming, they were on the Soul Plane, which we talked about last week.
Yes.
They're filming on the Soul Plane. And you can see this time you see it more because you see Kate and Charlie's flashbacks on the plane. So you see more of the people kind of scattered, more of the cast scattered throughout the plane. However, Kate, on the other hand, Evangeline Lilly is Canadian, so she had to get a U.S. work visa, and it didn't go through on time. So she missed like the first day or so of filming.
Oh, wow.
Which is interesting because I guess that explains why she wasn't in the crash, and we don't see her until she's coming out of the jungle when Jack's like stitching himself up. So I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense. So they had to film her flashback scene with the marshal separate. That's why you don't see any other cast members with her.
Okay, that makes sense.
There was also the first appearance of the Spanish version of Green Lantern in the Flash comic book. Which
I thought it was the Justice League. That looks like the Justice League.
Nope, Sam. I know you're a big comic book guy.
Oh my god.
Let me educate you here. It is Green Lantern Flash Faster Friends issue 1, which briefly features a polar bear.
Really?
Yep. Yeah, that's like on the cover there's a polar bear on it. And I was like, oh, that's weird. That's interesting. Yeah. So I thought that was cool.
That's interesting. What made them like put that in there?
I don't know. There's certain things on this show, Sam, that you will get answers to. There are other things that you won't. Sometimes that's okay. Sometimes it's annoying. But in the end, we'll always be lost.
Oh my god. The solely auditory medium that is the podcast, it's cannot truly capture my genuine sense of ennui.
I know your face palms throughout this episode are making me consider switching this to a visual format. I'm working on my transitions, and I guarantee you they will continue to get worse.
That is something that we can't expect. Lost is unpredictable, but my brother's bad transitions, those are you can always count on them.
Yep. So as far as behind the scenes goes, if I have this correct in my brain, from conception of the show to writing and casting, I believe it was like they got greenlit and they were filming within like a month, something like that.
You said that last week.
Yeah, so something crazy. I know Jorge Garcia, who plays Hurley, they had no character for him. So they literally just created Hurley on the spot and like, we'll figure something out. Charlie, the character Charlie was originally supposed to be like this middle-aged, washed-up rocker. But they love Dominic Monaghan so much, they're like, we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
Which maybe that's why I love this show so much, because that's like my life motto.
We'll figure something out, yeah. I think that's pretty interesting. I can definitely see, like a parody of like I don't know, Steven Tyler or something,
Right.
And just that like tight leather pants, leather jacket, obviously dyeing his hair, but he's that kind of person. But I like the idea of it's this younger dude who kind of like peaked when he was in Drive Shaft, and then they're still together, kind of on the I'm kind of uncertain of where Charlie is at this moment in terms of Drive Shaft. I don't think he's part of the band. But yeah, I like that idea of like, yeah, this dude peaked like in his like early 20s, and now he's just taken like the hard fall. Like that's it.
Yeah, and I think there's so many things where it's like I wonder what that original concept of Lost would have been, but I really think what it became was so much better. So because we talked about last week how Jack was originally supposed to die. Kate was the one who kind of steps up and becomes the de facto leader. So the
Which
fact
you
that
can
they kept
can
Jack alive is kind of interesting. So it's like,
Mhm.
okay, well, how does that change things here?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And it's interesting because you can still see like Kate sort of taking that initiative. Like she's the one who tells Jack like, "Hey, I'm going on a hike. I'm going to do this." And so it's sort of them becoming like the two leaders,
right.
you know? And it's interesting because nobody else has really stepped up to that,
Right.
you know?
Mhm.
And again, like this is the pilot, you know? So it's like there's only so much you can do in these 2 hours, but I do feel like that's an interesting thing to like have these two people be like, okay, these are kind of like the established leaders. You know, have like Hurley, who's obviously like, yeah, no, like he's a good dude, so he's obviously going to go with the good people. Charlie, who's like kind of on the fritz, but feels like he wants to do the right thing. And then you have Sawyer, who's just like, we don't know where his loyalties lie. He's looking out for himself. He's only doing things to look out for him. But he's the one that had the gun, which means he's dangerous. He's the wild card. He's going to have something up his sleeve all the time. So yeah, I can definitely see. I not trying to be meta or anything, but I can definitely see that like there's going to be a power struggle, and I think that's definitely going to come between Jack and Sawyer.
Yeah, even the way this episode flows, like we said earlier, Jack was kind of on the sidelines this time, and you can see like, okay, a lot of this still would have happened without Jack because it is Kate's the one leading the group up top, you know. Her and Saeed, they're kind of like taking charge of that. So Yeonjin Kim, who plays Sun, she auditioned for Kate. So they wrote the character of Sun for her. So in turn, they wrote the husband Jin, played by Daniel Day Kim, for Sun. So I'm like, that's
Wow.
really interesting. So much of Lost was just kind of, a lot of people really say it like in a
Just on the
negative.
fly.
Yeah,
you know?
but a lot of people talk about it like in a negative context, like, oh, they're making it up as they went. They didn't know what they're doing. Yes, that's partially true, especially for this very beginning. That's mostly true, but that's because they had a month, you know?
Yeah.
Even then, so even if you think about that, even if they had the whole script ready to go, they found actors that they really loved, that they really dig, and they said, you know what? They're giving us $12 million. I'm still going to change this script because I like that actor. And I'm sorry. That's the kind of people I want in Hollywood. That's the kind of people I want running my show. They're going to take a risk on me because they have no idea where this character is going, but they trust me as an actor. That's who I want. You know, so everyone says it in like a derogatory way, but I was like, no, you know what? You're fucking right. Lost was making up as they went. That's why it's iconic, you know? And then it's kind of up to you, you know, how it ends, you know? Does it pay off? How does it not pay off? I'm one of the ones who says even if you feel like it doesn't, it was definitely the journey. Me personally, I feel like the end was a great payoff. So, yeah.
It's really interesting to we have these two sort of examples of hugely popular shows that have a controversial ending. You have Lost, you have Game of Thrones. And it's so interesting because Game of Thrones had a roadmap for the first 5 seasons. I'm going to say the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And then so it's interesting to hear about how kind of shoddy and sketchy Lost starts. You know, to write the script, get $12 million, and then go into production in a month. That's not legit. I don't think on anybody's books is that legit.
Right, and they had every reason to fire that exec who greenlit it. Because that was a horrible business move. But as a creative, it was brilliant.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. And I think that's such an interesting thing of like, no, I don't think every show needs to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it's kind of really telling about how like this is the gamble that paid off, you know, because this guy obviously believed in the script that Abrams and Lindelof brought in, and they believed in these people who were coming in and reading for them like, hey, like we really like you. There's not a role for you, but you know what? We're going to make one up for you. And then it's so interesting to see just how, you know, how much like, yeah, you got that insanely cool lineup in the first episode right before the first commercial break. And you can see the like, yeah, even if not every single one of those characters is there by the end of the show, they're now synonymous. Their silhouette, their look, they're synonymous with Lost. Mm-hmm. And for what, 6 years?
Yeah.
They were the people that you thought of when you thought of the show, you know, right. That lineup. And I think that I think that's so cool. And I think that's it is a very sort of I don't know. I think it's just like yes, take chances. That's I think that's kind of like the log line for me right now. It's just like, yes, take chances. Be more
make mistakes.
Get yeah, like
messy.
Exactly. It's the Miss Frizzle school of life, you know, rule. It's just, yes, like you have to take those chances because they might not pay off every time. But that one time that it's going to pay off, it's going to be really cool. You're going to get something really cool.
They had a very phenomenal playbook of how to do Game of Thrones, how to do A Song of Ice and Fire. And as soon as the problems began, as soon as they started steering away from that playbook, Lost was the opposite. They didn't have a playbook. So after the pilot, they had to start figuring things out. Mm-hmm. So Damon Lindelof said, like, the day after the Lost premiere, he started getting calls, and they said how many people were watching, which I don't even have that number. It was millions. It was so much. Even by today's standard, especially by today's standard, because less people are watching television, and now they're split between streaming, and they're not all just watching Netflix. They're watching Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, HBO, everything. Yeah. So like that was one of the biggest television premieres of all time, and it might stay that way if you're watching our viewing habits. So, and Damon Lindelof said he's like, that's one of his most proudest moments, but also most terrifying, because now he realized, oh man, I'm gonna have to write this story. I'm gonna have to figure it out, you know?
Yeah.
Now I'm interested. So for next time, I'm gonna try and find out what was the time gap between filming the second episode and the third.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was. Maybe they just wrote on through. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into that. But it's really interesting because J.J. Abrams, he did the pilot. That's it. First 2 episodes, he took off. So that's when they brought in Carlton Cuse to team up with Damon Lindelof, and they just took the reins of Lost and they ran. So it's going to be really interesting to see how everything starts moving, forming, and shaping.
Okay.
So Sam, who was your MVP of this episode? Who stood out to you? Actor or crew member, anyone?
You know what? I'd say like as an ensemble, everybody kind of started like standing out. Just because like you get a lot more interactions with people. You Locke and Locke and Sun and Sawyer and Saeed, like everybody's kind of. I mean, I'm realizing how many people have S names in this show.
What a mystery!
Oh my god, that better not be one of them. But yeah. So it's like I'd say like as a whole, I think everybody kind of like brought it this episode. But if you want to get specific, my MVP is going to be Michael Giacchino and his score, because it's really subtle and you notice it when it's meant to be noticed, but there's a flourish in the scene where they're like climbing up the mountain that I'm just like, what is this? This sounds like adventure music. This sounds like something you find in something that inspires Sergio Leone, or something out of like an indie movie. Like that bit right there was such an interesting piece of music that like I just kind of had to stop. Like I had to I was leaning over, and I had to like sit upright. I was like, what is this show? This is a good, and I think it was a good indicator too of like I was already easing into the show. Like my body language was just like, yeah, okay, like I'm in this, like just like let's see where this goes. And it's at a point in the episode where you're like, okay, now we got to go do something, so let's go do it. And they don't mess around. Like, yeah, it's a montage, but like you're seeing people do something. You're seeing so many little like character interactions, character ticks, like as people are like moving up, and it's all set to this one piece of beautiful music. And then I just have to sit up. I'm like, okay, you have my attention. Like it never strayed, but now I'm really paying attention to what's going on. And I think, yeah, like that's great. I think it's, hats off to the editors and Michael Giacchino, because
that song reminded me of like kind of what you mentioned last week. This is the Lost World. This is this mysterious
modern
island.
Lost World. Yeah.
And you have the explorers going deeper in. And I was like, yes, dude, there's been so many instances of that in just literature.
Yeah.
And it's not even the Lost Island thing. It's the Heart of Darkness. You don't know what you're going into, but you're going in. You're going into the unknown. And I was just like, that music piece was amazing. I loved it. And we talked about episode 1, which was much more bombastic. It sounded, like we said, metallic, because they're using the pieces of the plane, the fuselage, to make the score.
Mm-hmm.
This one, again, subtle, just like the character moments. It was more about subtlety. So it was quieter, except for the montage where it's like, okay, we're going to move.
Yeah.
So that was brilliant. My MVP for this episode, oh man, I don't know. Everyone's pretty good. I'm probably going to give it to Naveen Andrews for Saeed, because everyone had their own things. Like there wasn't a single character this episode that I didn't like or I got bored with. But I have a note. I want Hurley to be my best friend. No. I take it back. I want to party with Hurley, but I want to be best friends with Saeed.
Okay.
Like so far, he's just seemed like the kindest, most accepting person. And again, I go back to that scene with him and Hurley where Hurley tries to shake his hand. He's like, "Oh, you're busy," and stops. And Saeed stops what he's doing, even though there's literally nothing more important right now than fixing that radio. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no. He's like, I'll shake your hand. There's just something so gentlemanly about that, something caring. Mm-hmm. And especially after he had just been accused and racially profiled and punched in the face. It's like the fact that this man can still be kind, I'm like, awesome. I love it. And I think Naveen Andrews is one of the most underrated actors anywhere. Like I haven't really seen him outside of Lost much. He did a few things here and there.
Where is his MCU property? Like he should be on billboards.
That's how we're going to end this episode, posters. Sam.
Yeah.
Who do we cast Naveen Andrews as?
Oh man, I think. Damn. Great, you stumped me. See, it'd be interesting because, like, if you want to do like a DC character, I would make a strong case of like, okay, I could see Naveen Andrews being like Dr. Fate.
Uh-huh.
I think he's got the voice for it. It's cool. The problem though is that his face is always covered because he's got the helmet. So and he's just like, he's such a talented guy. He's got such a handsome face. I don't want to cover it with a full face helmet, so it's got to be like a domino mask or something. Uh-huh. Honestly, I feel like you can make a case. You'd be a pretty cool Batman. I think that'd be cool.
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, and then in the Marvel universe, I don't even know. Like, yeah.
Oh man, so
some kind of royalty though. Yeah.
So he's English. He's English and Indian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's born and raised in England.
Interesting.
Interesting. I'm just trying to see like what else has he done.
We'll figure it out. We should make a poll. If we're gonna have any social media interaction, we should make a poll about this.
Oh, he was in Grindhouse. I remember that. Planet Terror.
Oh, cool.
He was in the 2012 version of Creature of the Black Lagoon, which I don't even know what that is.
I don't think that happened.
Oh, really? It's like canceled?
I think so.
Yeah,
I don't know.
He went on to do Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, the Once Upon a Time spinoff. That was only one season.
Oh, wow. I don't even remember that. Okay.
Yeah. He plays Jafar.
So bottom line is, Naveen Andrews, we love you.
Put him in stuff.
And we want to see you in more stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put him in Star Wars. Put him in Star Trek. Put him on Critical Role. Do that. Just let's do it.
Critical Role.
Yeah.
Oh man, I wonder who in the Lost Cast plays D&D. That's gonna be interesting. I feel like Jorge Garcia would, for sure. Like
probably.
So, all right, bro. So we did our MVP. So let's see how your predictions are going. Time travel? None this episode. Giant metal dinosaur? None this episode.
Nope.
Group Kumbaya? None this episode.
Definitely not this episode. Yeah.
Dang. All right, man. Well, you're 0 for 3 this time.
I'm 0 for 3. I'm gonna add. Let's see.
Well, hang on. We gotta tease the next episode first.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so next time is gonna be interesting because episodes 1 and 2 were the pilot. Episodes 3 and on is the post. I mean, I guess J.J. Abrams was still involved with the show, but that's really where we started getting Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse. Okay. That's when the pilot's over. So it's going to be interesting to see what we do with flashbacks, because that's something we haven't really talked about with this show, because so far all the flashbacks have only been to the plane crash. Right. Both these episodes have been ensemble episodes. But what made Lost really stand out was that there wasn't really a lead character. It was an ensemble. So each episode focuses on a different castaway. And that's what we're going to start seeing episode 3 and on. So we have episode 3, Tabula Rasa, which features Kate as she flashes back to when she was arrested by the marshal in Australia. Ooh. And that's it. I'm really trying to keep spoilers out of these.
Yeah.
So what's your predictions going forward?
Okay, let's see. So all the other ones still stand. I guess just for this next episode, I am going to predict epic gunfight with Kate. And then I'm also going to predict that I'm going to predict that Hurley is going to bond with an unexpected castaway, and we're gonna we're gonna find out that John Locke is actually Professor Xavier, incognito. Yeah, okay. That's all I got. Will I be right? Will I be proven right, or will I be proven wrong? I guess we'll just have to find out next time.
And get lost.
Get lost.